what a role to flex your muscles on. I mean, like if you were to watch like one episode of The Walking Dead and then watch an episode of The Serpent Queen and then maybe watch, you know, something like Harlot. I don't know, like there's such just very different. I'm like an old-fashioned character actress, I think.
That first of all, 30 years in to be able to do between Serpent Queen and Walking Dead, stuff that you've never done
at the same time. I did them at the same time as well, because I had to. We were shooting Serpent Queen, and then I flew to Atlanta to do the little special.
Oh right, yeah, right, that's right.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh my God, that was just for her. Yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Scott Mantz. So right now it is my absolute pleasure to engage in a conversation. I'm very, very excited. I've been hoping to have this conversation one of these days, and today is my lucky day. Please welcome Emmy nominee, Oscar nominee, SAG Award nominee, Samantha Morton. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I have to say 2022 is like a banner year for you. I mean, like what incredible performances in three completely different projects. You're Catherine de Medici in The Serpent Queen, you're Mary in The Whale, and you have a crucial role as Zelda Perkins in She Said. But let's start with The Serpent Queen. What was it like when you first read the story, read the screenplay or the teleplays, and really like wrapped your head around this character?
I think for me, I didn't know anything about Catherine de Medici. The Medici name is incredibly famous, so I was aware of that name, but I didn't know anything about her. And I was absolutely fascinated by this idea that, you know, we certainly growing up in the UK, we often know a huge amount about men in history, but we don't really know a huge amount about women in history, you know, historical women. And that to me was absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, that you know, I couldn't believe I didn't know about her. And so that kind of compelled me to want to know even more.
You know, when I'm watching the show, I was surprised that I didn't know enough about her. But in terms of like getting into character, what were your points of connection? Like, what were the points that you were able to relate to really draw you in as an actor?
I don't think there are any particular points, rather than I needed to find a way in. I needed to find a recognition I needed to see something in her that I recognized, therefore I could become. And I think when I first started realizing I could act and looking back on certain choices I'd made as an actor, I realized that as a very small child, I would watch people on the bus. I would watch people, how they walked, how they had their lunch in a cafe. And when you're playing contemporary characters, you can very easily transport yourself to, have you seen that person before? Do you recognize them? Is there a part of you in there? Is it part of someone you know? But when you're playing historical characters, you don't have any video footage, or you can't. So to me, it was about translating somebody that seemed so far away, not only in hundreds of years far away, but far away with their world, to try and contemporize it. How did I recognize this person? Was it about her that other than finding her fascinating, that I thought, yeah, I want to play her. And I have to say, I grew up really loving gangster movies, and I just saw her like an original Italian gangster, like you know, like The Godfather. And here's a woman who has many children. Evidently, she loved family, loved her children. She kept her friends close, her enemies closer. Fiercely intelligent. And so for me, it was that. It was finding something that was contemporary within history. And then the minute that had clicked for me, I was like, yeah, I see her. I really see her. And then when the script started coming in, then it was kind of working that out within how I saw her in here.
Wow. So you grew up loving gangster movies. I'm guessing from your quote that you're more of a Godfather person than a Goodfellas person.
I love them all. I mean, I really do Italian cinema as well, Rififi and Rocco and his brothers, I love Italian cinema, but I also, kind of the Bicycle Thieves, I love Italian cinema, so first Italian I've played. So I was, I found that absolutely extraordinary, and looking back to do with how the French saw the Italians as well, and the I suppose one would say racism now, the attitude towards the Italians, but actually finding things within that I could really connect to. So for me, I have a Polish-Irish family, and where Catholicism is very big was very big when I was growing up. So I was like, she's a Catholic, she's, kind of all these things about me that I could bring to the role as well, that I understood this idea of a big family having, my father was one of, I think, 13 children, so, my mother was from a big family as well. So just all these things within the story that I could identify with, I wanted to bring some of that to it.
I say this as it's a bold statement, because I've never seen you do a role like this before. It's so very, very different from anything. And just in more recent years, you've really just grown in different directions, like with Walking Dead. But what kind of preparation, after you got the recognition down to approach it, like what kind of prep did you do? What kind of research did you do to help you understand her better?
Well, I think ultimately the book, I didn't read the book. Fortunately, these things are on audio book now. So you can listen to these great actors reading these amazing books. So I had it on audiobook, and I listened to different versions of the book, and the unabridged, and the, and so there's like just completely diving in and absorbing all of that. And then waiting for the script, waiting to see what Justin would do. Because I'd read, I think we had like the first script. They weren't all written, when I came on board, but there was a synopsis, and they were very clear about where they wanted each season to go, and the journey, because it's the book, and it isn't a novel. This is historical fact in a way, as factual as they can be, which makes it even more brilliant, because you're like, oh my gosh, this apparently really happened.
Yeah.
I think I have played many historical women, I suppose. So for me, understanding her posture, how she walked, how she breathed within the corset wasn't too much of an ask for me, because I've done it many times before. Mm-hmm. I think when you've only done contemporary dramas, and then you're putting a corset on and carrying, 30 pounds of dress, and you're having to walk with all of that, it's a huge deal, So I felt that my experience, having played not similar characters, but similar periods before, meant that I had that as an advantage. The voice was something that I worked on because of, again, the breathing with the corsets, but then also knowing that this was somebody that was never able to be her true self anywhere. Privately, maybe when those doors are closed, but then the camera can't see it very much because she's not involved in the plot at that time. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, she's just never herself, because everybody's going to kill her at any point. Yeah. It is life and death. Every day she wakes up in the morning, it is a matter of life and death. And how do you play that enormously complicated game of chess with every, So it was that, really.
When you're talking about 30 pounds of wardrobe and the corset. So when you're prepping for a role like Catherine, and you're practicing your lines, and you're rehearsing with your actors and your directors and your producers and your creator EP, and you think like, okay, I got this down. Okay. But then you put on the 30 pounds of wardrobe with the tight corsets and everything. So how does that wardrobe take your performance to a level that even surprises even you after doing all of that rehearsal?
I think, having done costume drama for the last 25 years, I understand that when I'm blocking a scene, that my skirts are actually bigger. So I come to it with that experience. Does that make sense? I'm not somebody that's going to realize things later on. When I'm having costume fittings and they're designing clothes, I will explain that as an actor, I need to be able to move my arms above my head, or there'll be things that I might need to do. So I think that you bring, over the years, with each time that you're in a period piece, you learn each time. Corsets, please, if there's the budget, can they be made from scratch? Because hiring costumes, if you have to, so be it. But sometimes when you have things made, it fits your body better. You know what I mean? You're able to perform, cry easier, or move, or, you know, get on the horse, or whatever it is. If a director needs me to block and rehearse in my costume, I will. But I find it easier to have conversations about the space. What are we doing? What's important here? So that when I get to the set, I'm not wasting anybody's time. So because time is precious and time is money. So I take those conversations and we have them offset. So we fully understand where the characters are at, what their motivations are, where they've been before, because you're always shooting out a sequence. You never get a schedule and it's I mean, it's very, very rare. Sometimes it's contemporary. You can get away with that, excuse me, but most times not. So to have that through line, and I was incredibly lucky on The Serpent Queen because Justin Hayth, who wrote this, directed me, and he's a producer and a showrunner. He was on set every day by my side. So we had this incredible, it's like an umbilical cord, you know, like I was close to the mothership, close to the womb of the project, and he was that, and that was extraordinary. So yeah, so an interesting question. I think had I not done a lot of period dramas before, I would have learned a huge amount about this, but ultimately, because I was able to bring those suggestions and you know, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt kind of thing. I've learned from my mistakes. Let's do it this way. It was tricky in the heat of the south of France.
Oh boy.
That was insane. And I was only wearing black. So they say, don't wear black in the heat. You know, I remember on The Walking Dead, someone said, oh, you know, there'd be like a very brilliant safety memo that would go out with your call sheet. And it was like, you know, wear light colors. And I was like, but Alpha is only in black jeans and a black long sleeve top. And you do the best you can.
You know, Samantha, with all the work you've done, I mean, you know, what the first film that I saw you in, feature was Sweet and Lowdown, and you know, she was a character who didn't have dialogue, and you were nominated for it, but I'll get to that in a moment. But with all the prep that you had, like, you know, Justin sort of being by your side, how do you remember your lines? Like, you know, what's your trick to remembering your lines?
Well, it's interesting. I had a brain injury when I was 30. I had a stroke. And I'm fully recovered. But one thing that I was very, very frightened about was my memory. And being an actor, obviously, it's my life. That's my job, my profession. I didn't, you know, obviously there's the immediacy of once you've recovered and you've survived and you're there with your family and your loving family. But then I was like, but my job is an actor, and that's what. And so I've always been somebody that if I'm on a movie, before I even begin rehearsals or anything, I will know the entire movie. I've always been like that. I have to know all my lines, and then I forget about them, like they were never there. And then I make them fresh. With television, if the script, I started off in television in the UK in the very, very early 90s, and then decided I didn't want to do television anymore. I just wanted to be in films, very low budget films, independent cinema. Whatever film, if it was good enough and I was lucky enough to get the part, I just wanted to work with auteurs. And I'd been finding television brutal, where the scripts are coming under your door the night before, and the lines, and how can you really understand your character if everything's changing, and they just, you know, and things that were very kind of plot heavy, you know. And so I was a bit like, about going back into television, because as we know, the world has, with the way that our televisions are now, there's so much content and so much choice, and there's so much television being made with a huge amount of money and experience and care and time. And so that's the way it's been going for the last few years.
Yeah.
However, I feel very fortunate because the people that I'm working with understand that scripts, you need your scripts in order for everybody to do their prep. It's all in the detail. And heads of department, whether you're a costume designer or a sound designer, you're involved in those production meetings really, really early on to get everything ready. And then sometimes actors, we're just treated like a little bit like walking, talking props. We get everything last minute. The studios had to clear the word. Everybody's cleared the word, and then we get it. And we're like, I'm not sure I'd say that word. Hold on a minute. It's complex. But I feel very fortunate because the people that I've been working with, whether it was Peter Morgan, Jack Thorne, and now Justin Hayth, in these long form television programs that I've been making, are so unbelievably respectful and thoughtful and helpful that once I said, listen, I had a stroke a few years ago. I need a couple of weeks at least with the dialogue. But funnily enough, the job I'm on at the moment hasn't been like that at all. I'm shooting a show right now. And for one reason or another, I'm getting sides the night before sometimes. And I'm working with an absolute genius of an actress called Jane Lapeter. She's been around for a very, very long time, and I'm just in awe of working with her and by her side. She came into the makeup bus, she knew it all, like 2 pages of dialogue, she was fine. And I've been like, but I can't learn it until I've asked all these questions about why I'm saying this and what does that mean? And that contradicts that. And would she really say that? And Jane just said, don't overcomplicate it, Sam. Just learn the thing. And so I did in makeup, and I was fine. I was like, I can learn things really quickly. So I think sometimes our fear of what we're unable to do puts us in little routines, and we make rules for ourselves. And then actually sometimes those rules are just thrown out of the window because a situation will happen where you go, right, you've got to learn it right now. And you go. So a bit of a long-winded answer there, Scott, but it's
yes, it is a joy to hear. Be as long as winded as you want, because this is like an actor's dream to hear an actor like you really, really get into it and do a deep dive with your process. That's what we're here for. And like I mentioned, this year has been a banner year. I have to say, I saw, like, within maybe 2 or 3 days apart, both She Said and The Whale. And regarding She Said, you were talking about, I mentioned points of connection. You talked about things you recognize about the character. So when it came to Zelda Perkins in She Said, which is an absolutely essential role in a crucial moment that you have with Zoe Kazan on that film, what did you recognize about Zelda?
I recognized the need and the urgency to play that role.
Yeah.
Didn't recognize myself, but I felt very compelled and honored that they'd thought of me, but really determined to do a good job. Because without giving anything away to anyone who may be watching and hasn't seen the movie, she is the most remarkable human being. And I was, I didn't want to get it wrong, Scott. I didn't want to mess it up. But equally, there's a lot of footage of Zelda. I'd met Zelda in the past. Our paths had crossed. And I recognize the need and the urgency to try to do my very, very best, the best that I've got in me ever. And I think that as actors, we feel that about a lot of jobs. Like, could be my last job. You're only as good as your last job. Let's make sure you're good. Like, we always have that, looking over our shoulder. How am I going to work again?
Right.
It's not a given for any of us that we're just going to keep working, no matter if we're good or not. It's not always the way. But with this, it felt personal.
Sure.
It felt like certainly for myself, growing up in the 90s, being in cinema in the 90s, I had an extra kind of bit of fire in my belly to do it justice, to to be the best I could for Maria and Zoe and Dee Dee, and especially Zelda in that scene. So
with a scene like that, how many takes did you wind up doing before everyone said, yep, that's it, cut, print it?
Well, it's interesting because I think that the director, there's a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
And we needed to go through all of it pretty much every time.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing necessarily. That is about journey and hitting the right beats at the right time. And sometimes you've got to go again because of focus or boom. You're doing a 20-page scene, however many pages it is, and then, oh my God, boom's in. I'm not saying that happened on the day, but they're the kind of things that do happen.
Sure.
A supporting artist takes the wrong cue and you're like, oh, they were in the back of shot, or the glass isn't in the right place. I mean, there's always something. You're like, oh, okay, it's going to go. But fortunately for me, I love every minute I'm on set. And when I was younger, I used to be like, have they not got it yet? Come on, like, however many takes. And that wasn't necessarily always to do with performance, but there's possibly always things that go wrong, and then you're going again. And, even back in the day, there's a hair in the gate, whatever. But now I just am so excited to be doing it all the time that if we have to go again, I'm like, how can I make this even better? Or just enjoy this moment. Mm-hmm. And I think when we're younger, or when we have a bout of nerves, we want to get through it to get through it. We want to know we've done that day, or that take, or that scene. It's done. Cross it off. I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
We get sad when they're done. I'm like, oh, okay, we did that. We go again? No, okay, But I'm not somebody that needs to go again for ego. Like, oh, can we? I feel like I need to do another one or whatever. I'm just like, if I felt it, and all the other things worked, great. And if that happens on take one, fantastic. Take two, whatever. So it was a very long day, answer to your question. Yeah, it was a very long day.
It was a very long day, yeah. You know what, Samantha, you have worked with the best of the best behind the camera. Steven Spielberg, Jim Sheridan, and with The Whale, Darren Aronofsky is in a class by himself. His movies are really, really immersive and interesting and unique. What was it like working with Darren and of course Brendan Fraser? But like, what did Darren bring out in you maybe that was uniquely his?
I don't know. I think that what's always really exciting is when you are so excited to work with somebody that you can't sleep.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You're like a child at Christmas, or, it's that holiday feeling. It's like, I just can't sleep because I'm so excited. So there was that. And Brendan, huge fan of Brendan. And I just was so excited and so chuffed to be playing her. Like, oh, great, me? Great. Yeah, let's do this. And also, like, he's an original. I love that. I love arriving on someone's set where they are making decisions because they're right for them and their film, not because a studio exec or an accountant has done an algorithm somewhere and it means that we've got to perform something that way, or this person has to be cast because they make the numbers or something like that. I felt honored to be chosen and to be in part of that company, a little bit like an old-fashioned repertory theatre, like we're a little company taking care of each other. And it was COVID. And I don't say this lightly, but Darren was on, like, if we have bucket lists of directors that we'd want to work with, Darren was on that for me.
Of course.
Like, I always wanted to work with him. And years ago, I was lucky enough to have a friendship with somebody that knew Darren years and years ago. And there was a conversation I knew kind of around the time of Pi coming out, I just moved to New York City and
Oh, wow.
living in the East Village, and he was his name was there, and I've been a fan for a very, very long time.
Sure.
So that was that. And I suppose, so what did he bring out in me that was unique? I don't know. I think I've been doing this a very long time. I've been acting since I was 11 years old, and I'm 45. So I've been in front of the camera nearly all of my life.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I feel so alive. And if it all ended and I never got to do anything again, I would go, but I got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the Darren Aronofsky moment.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. I remember. So Pi was 98. That was, yeah, that goes way back with Darren. You finally got to work with him. But yeah, Samantha, what was it? You've been acting your whole life almost. Like, what was it that made you want to become an actor in the first place?
Oh, I think survival. I had a very complicated childhood. I was in the UK, we call it the care system, so foster care from birth. So I had over 12 sets of foster parents, and I was in children's homes. I was in trouble with the police when I was very little, and had a very complex childhood. And a teacher at school said, you should do drama. Mm-hmm. Now, I was somebody that was, if someone was being bullied in the playground, I would go and stick up for them, and I would have a fight with the bully. And I was never shy, never, ever shy, but also not kind of like musical, like Bonnie Langford. I wasn't kind of I was just kind of, I don't know, a real character, I think, looking back. And so this particular teacher said I should do drama. I didn't know what drama was really. And then he wrote down the name of this drama club, after school drama club. And I told my children's home about it. And we wrote an application form, and then they got the application form for me, and I went along and I auditioned, and I didn't hear anything that year. And I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, I had got in, but the letter hadn't been given to me. So next year I'm like, right, that drama thing, I'm going to go and have a go at that. And I went back and I got in the following year. And the man who ran that is a man, he's retired from that now, called Ian Smith. And he changed my life, because he told me that I had a gift and I was talented, and it was this thing called drama, and it was heavy. We would write plays, and it was about improvisation. And so twice a week after school, even though I wasn't at school, I would go to his drama club. And he was a casting pool for television in the area. So I would do like be an extra and things like that. So he got me involved in everything and gave me my first train fare money to London to audition for a play at the Royal Court called Ashes and Sand. And I got the play, and then I've not stopped working since. So, it just takes a few angels in your life to change your life. And he was an angel, and is an angel in my life. And it wasn't that I, was like, I want to be an actor. Somebody said I was confident and strong at something, because I didn't go to school. I left school at 12 years old. I have no qualifications other than, quite gratefully, I've been given some honorary degrees. So I'm Dr. Morton now, not that I use it, but, it's there. It's a gift, and wow. I treasure it, and I'm fortunate, and,
Someone saw in you something that it took a moment for you to see in yourself, and here you are all these years later.
I didn't know what drama was. I just didn't know. Wow. We're talking, inner city, very, very, I come from a very, very poor background, like very poor, the underclass in the UK, not even working class, high unemployment and crime. And so that was just so far from my world that I would ever be, on the telly or in the movies. But I think that there was an authenticity to me that I hadn't been trained in any way. It was completely natural. So then I had to learn my craft on screen, on set,
Well, you were talking about the early TV you did, and the first official productions that you worked on, Soldier, and Boone. What was that like for you to like this is it? I'm really in it now.
Well, I was a kid and I was playing the daughter, or I think in Boone, what was fascinating is she was originally like walk on one, which is when you have you walk on and you're kind of a featured extra. And then I started making her have lines. She was called Mandy the Carthy. And I started giving her lines. She hadn't had any lines written at that point. So I kind of made that part a little bit. And the director was someone called Michael Winterbottom. And you know who he then became. So he started, it's a little bit like when you look at Columbo and you see Cassavetes there, or Spielberg directed an early episode of Columbo. Like in television, you can meet some incredible directors who are starting on their journey. So, and I was a kid. I was just like, this is just so much fun. And I was like, just these small role, but able to watch a huge amount, just always learning and watching.
So I mentioned that my introduction to Samantha Morton came with Sweet and Lowdown in 1999. And here you're working with Woody Allen, writer-director. You're working with Sean Penn. And like, you have a role that was your first Oscar nomination, and she doesn't have any dialogue. So like, what was the challenge to do that? And what did you learn the most from working on that film?
Well, there wasn't any kind of special, this is how I'm going to play her from my perspective.
Yeah, right.
Because I think the thing about Hattie was that she was a chatterbox. She just was mute. If she could speak, she'd be like,
yeah, totally.
There was so much going on. And Woody was just a dream. He was kind and funny and inclusive, and Sean was they're just like family, like just so helpful and kind. And we had a good time. It was fun and it was enjoyable. And it was, my research for that was Woody said, I need you to watch the Marx Brothers films.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, yeah. And it's Harpo. Okay, I'm being Harpo. Okay, I get it. And that was my little note. And then I did get a bit scared because friends of mine who'd been in Woody films had said, you might not make it to the cut. Oh, you might be just not in the movie. He might reshoot the movie. You might not be in it. I was like, oh, I hope not. And I was in the movie. So I was just happy to be in the movie.
What do you remember about the moment that you heard that you were nominated for an Academy Award?
I was very heavily pregnant with my first child. I was 22. And I was just really, really happy. I think, coming from where I'm from, my childhood and everything, kind of dreams come true in a way. They can. It sounds a bit wishy-washy, but they do. And I felt, just to be nominated, or just to be, forget all of that stuff. And I mean this, just for me to get on a plane and be in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. I grew up watching American cinema, like as a British person, everything, all the movies are in American, like everything's American for me growing up. America's the best. It's like where you want to be. And so regardless of anything, just working in America was a dream come true.
For sure.
To get off that plane and be in New York City and, and then, so, yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I went to Los Angeles was for press for Emma. And the actress who played Emma, Kate Beckinsale, I think was unavailable to do press for the show. So Sue Birtwistle and Delia Fine, who was running, I think she was part of A&E at the time, and Sue Birtwistle was the producer of Emma, invited me to go to LA, and we were in Pasadena, and I hired a little bicycle and I went round, and I was just like, this is where I want to be. And actually, I don't think any press wanted to talk to me because I wasn't Kate Beckinsale. I was like little hat, play, which was fine because I got a little free holiday, and Mark Strong got to do some interviews and stuff. But it was like, I just said, please, Lord Jesus, please, if this is meant for me, I'd really like it, please. How can I make this better? How can I deserve this? What can I do? What can I give back? Because I'd really like this to keep happening. working in America. And obviously an Oscar nomination was incredible because I'm Sam from Nottingham, and that just doesn't happen, really. The odds are so, I don't even know what the odds are. I didn't go to drama school. I didn't go to school. I was homeless. I was a homeless teenager. I was in trouble with the police. And here we are a few years later, and I'm going to the Oscars with my newborn baby.
Wow.
And sharing, like, you know.
Yeah. So speaking of being in America, that brings us to In America with Jim Sheridan. And you were talking about your background and your upbringing, and also about recognizing something in the characters that you could like latch onto. So what was it about In America that you really were drawn from your own background while also working on a film that was semi-autobiographical for Jim Sheridan?
Yeah. Well, this is the funny thing about our business, Scott, because the part, I think, I could be wrong, but Kate Winslet was meant to be playing that role, and she pulled out and was doing something else. And so the role became available, and I was doing Minority Report, and I was staying in California, and I had to rush to this meeting and didn't really know much about the project other than it was meeting Jim Sheridan. I mean, come on, I was meeting Jim Sheridan. He's like The Name of the Father, My Left Foot. I mean, like, he's the boxer, like Jim Sheridan. And I go to the meeting, you know, even if the part doesn't go my way, it's fine. I just want to meet the man because he's just incredible. And anyway, I ended up getting the role. And for me, you know, my family, my grandmother came, she was pregnant and a single mother, and she emigrated from Ireland to England. So, you know, she started with nothing, you know, and my grandfather's Polish, you know, a refugee, you know, a prisoner of war, like everything that happened to him and his family in the war. So I have this history, you know, my grandfather couldn't speak any English. And my grandmother, in England then, the racism in England towards Irish people was despicable. It used to say no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs on the door. You know, so my family would, you know, I grew up with my family being mistreated and hated. And, you know, I think what I loved about when I arrived in New York when I was young is the fact that everybody was there, every culture, every religion, everything, walking peacefully side by side. And I burst into tears at crossing the road one day, just going like, this is home, this is where I belong, this is how human beings should be. And so that was a reason for me wanting to be in Jim's film, because I have this Irish history. I wanted to explore that a little bit, how that felt inside, but the idea of wanting a better life for you and your family and trying to go somewhere where things will be better. And the connection, I had a young baby at the time. So also I was a mother, and you know, there was a lot of things within that script that were just profoundly moving and compelling. And yeah, I just felt just so honored and in awe, and, you know, wanted again to do a really good job for Jim.
Well, you mentioned what are the odds? Well, the odds were pretty good because you got nominated for this one as well. And, you know,
sometimes it's the roles, you know, you get that, if you're lucky to get those roles where you get to show a little bit of vulnerability or, you know, yeah, I was lucky.
So also in 2002, talk about a breakthrough year, you know, or at least going to the next level. I got 2 words for you. Well, I got 4 words for you. The first 2 words are Minority Report, and the other 2 words are Spielberg and Cruise. So where to begin on this one? But let's start with Spielberg. What is it like? I mean, it's such an easy question. I'm sure I can't wait to hear the answer. What is it like making a film with Steven Spielberg?
Oh. Well, it's something you never forget, and it is a gift. It is a treasured memory in my memory bank. He's incredible, as we know he is an incredible filmmaker, a genius, a filmmaker. But he's also so unbelievably kind. And the thing about acting, and certainly to play a character that is so vulnerable, like Agatha.
Yeah, precog.
Yeah. In anyone else's hands, I may have had a breakdown, because the character goes, she feels everybody's pain. She's an empath, so she's feeling everybody's pain and the vulnerability of that. And I was obviously wanting to give it 150% all the time for Tom and for myself, and the you always want it to be, as I do, as good as it can be. Huge amount of enthusiasm. Stephen is a gentleman, and he's fatherly, and he's kind, and he's respectful, and you feel safe. You feel completely safe on his set. Safe to perform things that are pretty tough. Safe to say, I don't feel comfortable with the way the scene is going. You feel safe to say, can I use the restroom? You feel safe. You just feel safe. And I think that isn't a given. Just because somebody's a brilliant filmmaker isn't a given that they're going to be wonderful to work for. But he is, and he was, and their memories I'll have my heart forever.
So here you're playing this extremely vulnerable character who was an empath, like you pointed out, and she is covered in goo in part of the film. And, when you're getting into character like that, it's one thing, but when the filming is done and you get out of that character, like, is that something you're able to just like flick a switch and get out of character? Or do you need a moment? Do you need a few days? Do you need a week?
I had a small child. Esme would have been 1 year old.
Yeah.
I was 23, single mum. I have to get out of character. I've got nappies to change. I have to express my milk. I have to do the shopping. I have to. And I think I'm lucky that I've always been able to go into things very quickly and leave them very quickly. It doesn't mean that I'm not tired. It doesn't mean that I'm not spent. And that's why it's hard having a family as an actor. We're like circus people, aren't we? We're on the road. If we're lucky enough to be on the road, we're on the road, living out of a suitcase, taking our families, trying to have some semblance of normality the best we can, and also accepting that it's never going to be normal because we're actors, and this is this is what we do. So yeah, I had to find a shortcut to lose some of the stuff in order to be there for Esme.
Amazing. That's amazing. And that the scene, there's so much about that movie. I mean, I've seen the movie so many times, and one of my favorite scenes is the where Agatha and you and Tom are like, she's like, stop, walk, stop, walk. like what do you remember? Like, I mean, it's such a, it's like 20 years ago already. But what do you remember about like filming a scene like that, which is it's not just about the performance, it's about the choreography.
I just remember having the best time with Tom. Again, somebody that, and I think it's actually important to say this because of times that we've been living in with the Me Too movement, is, I've worked with some of the most incredible, kind, gentle, professional, respectful men, and that set the bar very, very high on how you should behave on set, how you treat other people, and I've been very, very lucky because, all of these people, we talk about Sean Penn, again, incredibly generous and kind and respectful. Johnny Depp, the same, incredibly kind, respectful, thoughtful, gracious. And Tom, I just feel very blessed because these are men who were at the top of their game, movie stars, box office movie stars, and they are absolutely amazing to work for and with. That environment of kindness and compassion. And that day we laughed so much because it's just this, joy for life. And yeah, we're focused and we're in character and we're doing our stuff. But when we say cut, we've got to be able to laugh. You've got to be able to be there for each other. And I feel very blessed.
Yeah, your assessment of certainly Sean Penn and definitely Tom Cruise, based on other conversations I've had with other actors and other directors, is absolutely on point with what they have said about those actors. Yeah. So I love to hear that.
Because I have worked with people that are very, very famous, very successful, and ego and money and power means that the experience wasn't that nice, or I was bullied. There's been things that have not been great that have happened to me throughout the 90s in my career. And, SAG very recently brilliantly did a big questionnaire that we all had to fill out. And lots and lots of, and it was brilliant that they did that, because for the first time ever, you got to say, yes, this happened to me, that happened to me, that happened to me, and it's, so whilst we're talking about these wonderful things, I can say that they were wonderful because I've had other times when they've not been wonderful.
Right.
And people in power, positions of power, have been less than kind or generous or professional, and now we're in a position where we can say it's not okay. I get on the phone to my agent if that were to ever happen to me again, but I'm now a 45-year-old woman. Back then I was a younger woman in my 20s. And,
do you think that because, especially with what she said coming out 5 years after Me Too really broke through and Weinstein was definitely outed, do you think that it's gotten better? Do you think that the harder moments that you experienced earlier on in your career, do you feel like that moments have lessened?
I don't know, because for me, my experience as an older woman now in the industry is I've been around a long time. So there's certainly a level of respect when I arrive on a set, and I see that, and it's a lovely thing.
Yeah.
The people that I choose to work for, hopefully, you just never know. You hope they're decent people. It's always the bit of the Wild West, isn't it? But I think that it's certainly in the UK, as more and more things are made, we have less and less experienced crew. So we have a situation now where a lot of people really at trainee standard are doing jobs that they just haven't been trained enough to do, because so much is happening, so much is filming. And because of we don't have strong unions here in the UK. We really don't. Equity is not strong like SAG. Bec 2 is not strong. You've got the Teamsters, you've got SAG-AFTRA. It's amazing in America that we have SAG to stand up for us when our hours, or it's a dangerous set, or you get, I'm so happy on The Walking Dead when my local SAG representative came up and said, here's a card. If anything happens, you can call me.
Wow.
Wow. That is brilliant. We don't have that in the UK. You have there's nobody to go to if for a let's say young man or woman who's being either bullied, sexually assaulted, harassed, not paid on time. There's nowhere to go. You might phone up Equity, but nothing changes. Nothing happens, sadly, at this point. They just don't have the power. So the truthful answer is I hope that things have changed. The fact that we're even having this conversation, Scott, means that times are changing.
For sure.
For everybody. But I think that we have to be very careful in cancel culture as well. I think that, I've been in situations where some very, very brilliant people lost their job because somebody had made an accusation about something they'd said that just didn't happen, and there was no formal investigation. They were just fired.
Yeah.
I was like, what? No way. No. Why don't you ask people that were there? Let's just do a little, like the police would. Why don't you come and interview us all? And, but no, we've just got to protect everything, and you're gone. You're gone because, this has been said. So I think we're living in funny times as well, Scott.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's the waters of the cancel culture have definitely been tricky to navigate. But
yes.
When we're talking about some of the directors that you worked on earlier, and then you got to work with them again, like Michael Winterbottom, who I love as a filmmaker, and a film that I absolutely loved that I just felt I loved it when it came out, but I felt like it just kind of got a little lost. But people now really love it. Is Code 46.
Yeah.
So
that's fascinating because that's incredible sci-fi.
I love it. That's what I'm a big sci-fi guy. So
yeah, well, there you go. I think I think Frank Cottrell Boyce wrote that, and he's just next level. And Michael is someone again that I'm a huge fan of, and and Tim Robbins. I mean, I think that film did get a little lost, sadly. It was premiered at Venice, and I think there was a hiccup with the print at Venice. So, there's little things, but that, it was amazing to shoot. We were in all over the world, in, China, Pakistan, Rajasthan, Dubai. We went everywhere. It was absolutely incredible. I had an amazing time.
So you were talking when we were talking about the Serpent Queen, about prior work you'd done with period pieces. And I wanted to ask you about working on Elizabeth the Golden Age with Shekhar Kapur, and how that kind of sort of opened the door for you a little bit with the Serpent Queen.
There's the Golden Age, but I'd also I played Jane Eyre and Emma, and I did a show called Tom Jones for the BBC when I was younger, where I played Sophia Weston. So kind of the idea of the costumes had been there before, but that period, and certainly to do with Elizabeth, Antonia Fraser, an amazing writer, wrote a book about Mary Queen of Scots and Elizabeth and their relationship. And so at that point, I'd been researching all of that, obviously. So when I came now, all these years later, to play Catherine, obviously I knew her name, but it was, it's fascinating that all these powerful women were in control at the same time. I mean, it's...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point.
Yeah. When you think about it, it's amazing.
That actually, I never thought about that, but you're totally right. So when I was talking about Darren Aronofsky, there's another director who, who started really as a writer and became a very sort of cerebral director as well. That you just, when they come out with a new movie, you just go, ooh, Charlie Kaufman, Synecdoche, New York. Yeah. And here is a movie where you work with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and where you had to age more than 30 years and wear heavy prosthetics. So what were the challenges in doing a film like that, which was completely different from anything you've ever done, with the director who is in a class all by himself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, wow. That's an experience of total wonder. Like, you feel like a child. What are we doing? Where are we going? How? Wow. And I had really lovely history with Phil from when I first moved to New York. He was very close friends with one of my best friends, Shifra Campbell, who's a writer-director. And she'd put on these kind of theatre workshops that we did. And, and Michael Shannon, and we had lovely times back then. So I always wanted to work with Phil. So yeah, I keep saying, it was amazing. It was amazing, but it was tough because I was pregnant with my second child.
Jeez, wow.
And so yeah, my character's living in a burning house, and I'm pregnant, and I'm wearing the prosthetics, and the hours were crazy because it was, believe it or not, it was quite a low budget film as well. So not uber low, but low budget, whereby we only had one prosthetics person. So I would be in the chair for a few hours, and then Phil would be in the chair. Then I'd go back to the chair, and then Phil would go back to the chair. And that was crazy. Oh, it was crazy, but an amazing cast, and just an utter privilege to be cast in something like that, and to play this kind of wonderful Hazel. She was joyful, because some of the roles I do, Scott, are really heavy and really,
they are.
they're really tough. Whereas she's light and positive and sweet, and all of these things. So it was amazing.
When I was at Sundance I guess it was 2009, and I saw The Messenger, which was the first exposure I had to Oren Moverman. And of course, Ben Foster is also terrific in the film. So what's it like? What is a writer-director like Oren bring out? And what makes him a great actor's director?
My history with Oren is that he co-wrote Jesus' Son.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we had this history, and gosh, he's a highly intelligent human being with a huge amount of empathy and understanding and patience, and kind of let's just feel it and see what it is. Whereas some people, and it isn't a bad thing, they need to tell everything what it is. You're going to be this is what I need here, has to move at that point, and everything is very choreographed and staged, and it all looks very naturalistic, but you'll know the amount of effort that's gone into something to make it look naturalistic when it's not at all. Yeah. Whereas I think Oren is someone that has a huge amount of trust and respect for actors and likes to give them room to breathe and to find the character and to just be in the space. And I had a wonderful time working with him, for him. I do it in a heartbeat. He's just incredible.
After you had your health issue, your stroke, and you took time and you rehabilitated and healed and got back on track.
It was Charlie and Spike who said, "We'll wait for you. Don't worry." And they spoke to my doctors, and the doctors said, "Yeah, we think she's going to be walking by May." I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be walking by May." And I went and made the film.
How did your approach to what you were looking for in movies and eventually back in TV change after all of that?
I just wanted to work. I really wanted to work. And I think the industry can be quite brutal to women if you gain weight. And I was on medication. I'd been on medication in the hospital, and then I'd had a baby. And if you gain weight, it's brutal. They're like, she's too heavy. But I remember when I was younger, there was always a reason for me not to get a role. Oh, her forehead's too big, her teeth are too crooked, or people always find a reason to not give you something. And as a woman, oftentimes it's to do with how you look. And I'd always made an effort to not be somebody that did many photo shoots, at an opening of a premiere, or, we say this thing, opening of an envelope. I didn't promote myself as a celebrity back then. I just did my work, promoted the work, and that's what I did. And I always hoped that my work stood for itself. And thank God it did, because I kept working. Sure. But it was still not easy, because you're searching for, again, roles that are going to push you, or something you've not played before. And you end up you feel very irresponsible, because you end up saying no to a lot of stuff. And you're like, I haven't worked. And you're selling things in the house so that you've got money in the bank, because you're like, I can't do that because it's really bad. And this is my body of work, and this is my history and my legacy. So, there's been many times when my poor family have gone, okay, that painting's gone. I'm saying, yeah, it's good, because they're like ices. I buy things, and then when, then I have to sell them when times are bad, because, we do have to work. And I'm lucky because the work is still good.
Right.
Touch wood. Yes, touch wood.
When I look back on your body of work, and even when you did like a Hollywood production like Minority Report, it was still like a unique role. It was based on a story by Philip K. Dick. I mean, it was such an immersive role. And then, with like Synecdoche and The Messenger, the film you did with Johnny Depp, The Libertine. And then you do a film, Hollywood production, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's a big Hollywood movie. It's based on a thing. It's a franchise, an IP, as they call it. What is that like for you to go into something where there is just a whole lot of cooks in the kitchen, because it's more than just that film and that performance?
Well, I had an experience earlier on with working, I suppose, how would you, I was doing a Disney film called John Carter of Mars. and we were signed up to do quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
And the incredible genius that is Andrew Stanton was directing that and did direct that. And Willem Dafoe played my dad. And I was playing the Princess of the Tharks, and it was a great role, and certainly was getting kind of more meaty in 2 and 3. Do you know what I mean? You sign up for the... And I think Disney then bought Star Wars. So all of a sudden we were that was it. It wasn't happening anymore because Star Wars was where they were going. And I was so sad to not work with Andrew again, because I'd had such an incredible time. And I found it fascinating watching how the machine worked. I've done theatre, I've done radio, television, street theatre. I've directed myself. I sing. I'm in a band. I've got all these other things that I do. And I just was fascinated by how do you direct 3 cameras all the time with 3 film cameras shooting film, and we're in the desert, and you have, stunts and all. And I found that it's just another muscle. It's just really interesting to see A, how that works, but B, how I could work within that. And could I still perform? Could I still do what I believe that I can bring to a show? And I could, and I loved it. Very sad it didn't go again. So when Fantastic Beasts came through, I was a little bit like, oh, not sure. Really wanted to work with David Yates. And I love the Harry Potter films. My daughter, growing up was obsessed, seen them all many, 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 many times, and all of the behind the scenes many, many, many times. And I was like, oh, but I'm too young for this role. And this is what's interesting, because I was then must have been late 30s, but they were wanting me to play late 40s. It's a good role, but I'm like, do I do it? Because I'm aging myself up, and they didn't want me to look. There was instruction, she can't look nice, and so, and I think that they want to give it to an actor that they can trust, can just bring home the bacon kind of thing, just deliver. Mm-hmm. And I actually really like the fact that my character didn't go through because of other things that I have had planned in my life. And it was like, no, that's great, because I get to have that experienced, and I'm not signed for the next 10 years. It's at that point.
That's right.
So I loved it. I loved it.
So with other television that you've done, you're there from the beginning. I think you grow with the cast, you grow with the dynamic. But when it came to joining The Walking Dead as Alpha, that's a show that had been on for a while. The cast is like that. They've got their stuff down, and you're coming in. So what was that like for you to jump in with sort of a family that was pretty close knit, and also play a baddie?
Yeah, I think so. Season 9, Alpha arrives in season 9. Alpha and Beta. Well, it was a funny one, because this is where I thank Scott and Jenny, my representatives, are just amazing. I just have to say this: I've been really lucky. So I've been with my British agent since I was 18, and I've been with Jenny again since I was 18, 19. So, and I'm so blessed with who works with me. It's a long commitment working with, and a lot of respect. And so when Scott, my American agent, brought this to me, he was like, okay, just hear me out. And he was like, this is it. And Jenny was like, this could be really good. And Nikki, my British agent, was like, well, it's horror, Sam. And I was like, I love this genre. I said, American Werewolf in London, I loved growing up. I said, The Hills Have Eyes, The Witch, Superstition. I grew up watching a lot of horror, and just, all of those zombie films. My stepdad had a pirate video shop in the front room of our house. It was really naughty, but I got to see films I really shouldn't have seen when I was very young. But I was excited. Had never seen The Walking Dead. So I did a bit of research, and then had a long chat with Angela Kang, who's the new showrunner.
Yeah. Oh.
Was like, wow, what a role.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a huge role. huge responsibility because to the fans, but to the show, you need to get this right. And they were taking a risk as well. This British, I mean, like they took a bit of a risk too, I think. But it paid off because it's one of the best roles I've ever played in my life. And I love playing her. I miss her. She's just extraordinary. And she's a pretty big deal in the comic books as well. So, and the Whisperers and that storyline. So I think the fans were happy, which when you're doing a show like that, you don't do it for yourself. You do it for there's people that invest. Gosh, I mean, there's so many people that have alpha tattoos on their arms and like send them to me. I was like, oh my gosh. I did one event where I was part of the Walking Dead team. We went to this place in Atlanta. It's called Walker Stalker thing. And, you meet everyone and have pictures. And I did one of those. And I wasn't going to do it because I was very shy. And it was like, and they were like, but the fans will be so sad if they never got to meet Alpha here. And it was crazy. It was crazy. So that was an experience, a really enjoyable one for the kind of the ego where you're like, oh my gosh, people know who I am. I'm getting recognized. This is amazing. And you feel like, oh, and secondly, what a role to flex your muscles on. I mean, like if you were to watch like one episode of The Walking Dead and then watch an episode of The Serpent Queen and then maybe watch, something like Harlot. I don't know, like there's such just very different. I'm like an old-fashioned character actress, I think.
That first of all, 30 years in to be able to do between Serpent Queen and Walking Dead, stuff that you've never done.
At the same time, I did them at the same time as well because I had to. We were shooting Serpent Queen and then I flew to Atlanta to do the little special.
Oh right, yeah, right, that's right.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh my God, that was just for her. Yeah.
But are you like, after all this time, after all the challenging roles that you've done, and now like here you are, you're like the pick of the litter with such like here, they're like, oh, this is over here and this one's over here. Are you like, this is what actors dream of, to have the variety to try something here that's different, to try something there that's different? Do you just feel like, wow, I am just the luckiest person in the world?
I do feel very blessed. I do. But I'm not afraid to ask for those challenges. And I'm not afraid to say, please trust me with your material. I promise you I'll do a good job and I will give you the best of me. That's what you get. You get all of me. You don't get me with any conditions. I'm just there, chomping at the bit and hungry and excited all the time. So it's I am lucky, but I think that you can also dedicate a lot of your time to wanting to manifest really good things. And I've never wanted fame. I've never been hungry to be famous or a star. I've always just wanted the respect of my peers and to make the people that I work with proud of me and happy. And it doesn't always happen, but I think, people do get happy. And they're like, yeah, you did good.
You were talking about Ian Smith before. Would you say that Ian Smith is the person who had the biggest impact on your career?
Yes. And Lynn Ramsey. I think Ian Smith and Lynn Ramsey. Yeah. Ian, because he gave it to me. Ian gave me the ticket really to become an actor and the confidence. And gosh, I was a very naughty child and I challenged him, but he found that interesting. He didn't just think me being naughty was bad and wrong. He was like, you're clever, you're bright. How can we channel this into a positive, into a positive way? And he's still a very dear friend, and he still works a lot in the business doing amazing things. And Lynn, because it was the first time I'd worked for somebody that, I just think she's a genius in a way that I can't even find the words for. And I don't use that word lightly. She's extraordinarily talented and special. And yeah, she just gives me and gave me a huge amount of confidence and courage in order to make my first film as a director, and that she believed in me and said I could do it, and the generosity of spirit and a woman wanting the best for you. And yeah,
Lynn Ramsey, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lynn Ramsey. I want to ask you, and this might be a hard question to answer, but if you had to pick like one role, one film, one show that was the most challenging for you, the one that really stuck out as like the hardest to really pull off, is there something that comes to mind?
The Walking Dead.
Oh, is that right? Wow. Alpha. I can see that.
her walk, her breathing, the accent, the hours spent with the incredible Jessica, just kind of getting that voice the way that we wanted it. And yeah, The Walking Dead. I'm so proud of it though, Scott. I mean, and for people that think I've got a family member who was like, I'm so sorry, Sam, I'm not going to watch it. It's about zombies. I said, it's not about zombies.
No, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah, it's about us.
And she has become addicted to the show, and like and she's not the kind of person that she's like, I don't think I'd ever watch anything like that. And it's, loved it.
Okay, what is your favorite movie of all time? I know.
No, that was coming. Harold and Maude, I think.
Good one. Good choice.
Or L'Atalante. Jean Vigo, L'Atalante, I think.
Okay, good one. What about television show?
Television show, The Wire.
The Wire is awesome. Good choice. You like what? Right? You like The Wire for sure.
Without a shadow of a...
this conversation has just been so amazing. And, there's so many actors who are struggling anyway. And then we had to go through, a pandemic, which really just crushed our business and our livelihoods and our industry. So for actors who are watching this conversation, who have had a rough go of it, but are staying the course because they just love the craft so much, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I'd say take care of your mental health, first and foremost. Mm-hmm. It's such a tough business at any level. It doesn't get any easier. The problems change. Take care of your mental health. Don't be afraid to ask for support, because we all have egos, and it's like, oh, I can't ask, I can't say that I'm in need. But obviously, with you should and you can, and I think that the good thing for us as actors is that they're making so much more stuff now. And SAG are going to look after us, and they will look after us, and they are, with our contracts and, and this is the other thing, the healthcare, the SAG-AFTRA health insurance is incredible. And we're very, very fortunate. And the pension scheme is incredible. Just have hope and just take care of the mental health, because it's so bloody brutal, excuse me swearing, but it is brutal for our confidence and our egos, and don't worry too much about, because we're always kind of changing, thinking, oh, I don't look right, or I need to fill my face with this, or I can't have any wrinkles, or I need to, when they're casting, I mean, I don't fully understand. I mean, I've done some stuff on tape, and I just can't, I'm like, I can't do it. It's terrible. It's that we're not in times now where we're often in a room with a casting director, where we're getting those notes from the casting director, where we know how we can do it better. So it's really hard when you put yourself on tape and you don't get anything back, and that's brutal, and it's not getting any easier. So we've got to be there for each other, but they're making more and more content. Know who you are inside, know where your strengths lie, find those strengths and focus on those strengths. That's what I believe, I really do.
That's great advice. So The Walking Dead is on AMC. The Serpent Queen is streaming on Stars. She Said is in theaters now, and The Whale opens in December. And you can see Samantha Morton in all of this, and then some. Samantha Morton, from the bottom of my cinephile heart, thank you so much for this amazing conversation and for joining us on the SAG-AFTRA Foundation career conversation at home. All the best to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody. If anyone's watching this, thank you.